Good evening. This is BelGeode, and we are back with some more X-Plane 11 in virtual reality. Howdy folks, and we are back here in X-Plane 11, and tonight we are going to continue our Orbx True Earth Florida tour with leg 3, which will take us from here in Jacksonville, Florida, south to Orlando, Florida. Now, if the scenery does look a little bit different, we're not actually at Jacksonville International Airport. We're at the Naval Air Station we overflew, because I want to show off this aircraft that's so brand new it's not even out yet. Now, I got special permission from the developers to give you a preview of this aircraft. So what we will be seeing tonight is the AOA Simulations rendition of the Boeing SAAB T-7A Red Hawk. Yes, you heard correctly. I'm going to be showing off this aircraft, and I'm going to do it as a preview, if you will. Remember, this aircraft is in beta as of right now, and while it should be available for X-Plane sometime really soon, do expect that I'm not going to go through every single thing with this aircraft just yet. But hopefully we should get a really good idea of what this aircraft is capable of. And as we typically do with our legs through Florida, we're going to go to SkyVector and show you what our path is going to look like that'll take us from Jacksonville south to Mickey Mouse country. So for the inaugural flight of this Red Hawk, we're going to be leaving from the top of your screen and heading to the bottom of the screen. So we're going to be leaving Kilo November India Papa, which is Jacksonville Naval Air Station. We're going to dogleg hard right over Jacksonville Craig, and we're going to follow the Atlantic coast south. So we're going to be overflying St. Augustine, which is Northeast Florida Airport, if I'm not too mistaken. And we're going to be making use of two waypoints, Farmrow and Comet, which are going to put us just to the east of Cape Canaveral. You may have noticed that this aircraft is rocking a NASA livery, which is one of the liveries that this thing will come with once it goes live. So we're actually going to pay a visit to Cape Canaveral on our way in to Orlando, and we're going to be landing at Nimbus Simulations rendition of Orlando International Airport, an airport that I am very familiar with. Alright, so now that we know where we are going and how we're going to get there, we can go ahead and put away the X-Pad, because we really won't be needing it for the rest of this flight. This is a high-tech aircraft, so we have everything that we need to get her done. You may notice there's a little GPU right there. We will not be using that GPU because we actually have an APU on this aircraft. Now, let me call attention to this little guy right here. This is Avatab. If you're not familiar with Avatab, Avatab is a free plugin that will allow you to do certain things in the form of a little pad. And this aircraft comes with this little iPad looking thing here that will allow us to pull up things, for example, the manual. The manual is located in one of the directories, one of the folders that you would get with this aircraft, and we can actually pull up things like the checklist and so on, which is what I'm looking for right now. There it is. That is our main manual. So we can rotate the manual, and then we can also rotate Avatab, so that way we can go through the checklist for startup. Now, I've actually memorized the checklist for this aircraft. It's really not that difficult. So I'm going to run through that really quickly for you here, and we should be able to get this bird up and running. First things first, we're going to need our battery, so we'll turn that on. We'll also need our avionics, so we'll get that going, and we'll also turn on our nav lights here. Alright, so you'll notice a number of things have come to life. First and foremost, you've got this really big panel which also contains a G1000 built into it. This panel is very reminiscent of things like the F-35, which also AOA Simulations did create for X-Plane, so they're very used to this layout. But there's a number of vast improvements to this thing. For example, we can pop out this panel by clicking on it. Now bear in mind, since I'm in VR, I can't see the pop-out. It will not show up in VR, but it will show up on your monitor, so you should be seeing our flight plan right now, and we'll just confirm that everything looks to be what it should be. We're also going to zoom out to about 7.5 nautical mile range. Right about there should be good. Okay, so we'll leave it like that, and we'll go ahead and close this out, so that way I can actually see it in VR. There we go. And now we're good to go. Alright, so above the big, huge main screen is what's known as the upfront controls. And AOA has done some creative liberty with this. You'll notice the two little people icon. That will allow you to go back and forth between the front and the rear cockpits. It also knows when you're in VR, and there are also different icons for various external views that you can have with this aircraft. So pretty cool shortcuts that are incorporated into this thing. There's also a HUD, not a helmet-mounted display, mind you, but an actual HUD. And you can see that we can make it brighter or we can make it dimmer. Alright, but let's get to the engine start. So we'll start our fuel and we'll turn on our APU. Wait for that to power up. You can see the percentage rising right there. When it reaches to about 99%, we should be good to go. Then we can do a full engine start. There is only one engine in this aircraft, and it is the exact same engine that is in the Hornet, just so you're aware. Alright, this is our start button here, which I have bound to a button on my HOTAS, so we'll just hold that down for a few seconds here, and we'll watch as the percentage rises. Once that gets to about 20%, we should be good for an engine start. You can see everything just come to life there. So there we go. We've got a really good engine start on this bird. Alright, now that that's done, we can close our canopy. The switch is right here. Look at that. I should point out that the mirrors do not work. However, this is X-Plane, so there is like reflectivity in it, so it will work kinda sorta. You can see the rear cockpit behind us where the instructor would sit, and the instructor is separated by glass. We'll be looking at that momentarily. Alright, let me see if there's anything I'm missing. Oh yeah, the generator. Should turn that on. There we go. We also have de-ice capabilities with this thing. Now, I do want to explain to you a little bit about how this panel works. It is kind of a touchscreen, but only certain portions of the panel are, I guess, touchable is a good way to put it. You can see our transponder here. We're going to set that to standby really quick. And we're just squawking 1200 for the time being. This is our engine controls here, and it will also show you our fuel. A really cool thing about the fuel is that if you want to do a refuel, you can actually just flip this little IFR switch and it will automatically start refueling, whether you're on the ground or in the air. So that was a neat little touch. You can see we've already got some more gas. We're up to about 4,000 pounds. So we should have definitely enough gas for this trip. Alright, now the main panel, I'm going to show you some of the little side buttons that are on there and what they do. So right now, of course, we're on the checklist page, so it'll colorize things as things are completed. And we also have an ADI page, which is kind of sort of similar to what's being shown on the HUD. Then we have our FCS, or flight control surfaces, which will tell you at a glance what each surface is doing. And then finally we have like a radar or radar warning screen. It's kind of like a RWR, but it also will show you traffic, as you can see in the G1000 display in the center there. Alright, so we're going to put that one back to the checklist page, since there's still some items that I need to check off. Now what I'm pointing to above is our barometric setting, which is one of the quote-unquote touchable parts of this screen. So we can actually click on the screen itself, and as you can see, we are changing our barometric pressure, which I happen to know is 29.98. And it just went back to 9 or 2. Huh. Okay, so apparently the click spot is really tiny on this. Remember, this is beta. Things are subject to change, but we do have it right now, 29.908. And if we want to, we can actually verify that by contacting ATIS for Jacksonville. Bear in mind, the Naval Air Station does not have its own ATIS.
Jacksonville INTL information Romeo. 1800 Zulu weather. Wind 170 at 10, visibility more than 10. Sky conditions 1000 few, 32500 scattered, temperature 20, dew point -8. Altimeter 2998. Arriving runways 0814, departing runways 0814. Advise on initial contact you have Romeo.
Aha, I was right, 29.908. Okay. Alright, so let's take a look at the right-hand side of the primary flight display where it currently shows us our flight path here. If we click the second button, we will have a duplicate of that RWR screen that we saw on the left-hand side. Below that is the weapon screen. We will not be using weapons on this one. This is the training variety, but the fighter version does come with weapons. We will, however, be using this screen. This is the camera. And this comes in handy, especially when you're in the instructor seat in the back, since you can't see due to this giant ejection seat in front of you. Before we do that, however, let's do our controls wipeout and make sure everything checks out. Okay, so everything checks out, and we are in the back seat of the Red Hawk. Yeah, look at that. So the visibility is kind of good back here. However, with that having been said, we still can't see what's directly in front of us like we can in the pilot seat. So we're going to be relying on this camera in order to taxi to the runway. Now, I don't remember what the runway number is here, but I have removed our brakes, and suffice to say, I know where it is that we need to go, because I did a test flight. So we're just going to go over there and get into position, and then that way we can take off. So remember, this thing only has one engine, but it is the same engine that is in the Hornet, so it is the GE F404. Now, the F404 does have a fair amount of thrust with it, but you need to couple that with the fact that this is a very light aircraft. Empty weight, I believe, is about 7,500 pounds. Really light, much lighter than the Hornet. So needless to say, we should be able to get a fair amount of power out of this thing. And of course, it does have afterburner capabilities. Afterburner is controlled via a switch. So as long as that switch is on, you will be able to actually get afterburner out of this thing. I will show that to you in our flight once we get to, you know, a safe enough altitude and distance away from any areas of civilization, so that way I can do a little bit of, shall we say, shenanigans. You know what I'm used to doing. Alright, but we still have our little camera going there, and you can see that it is guiding us directly to the runway threshold, which is awesome. So we're going to go ahead and put the brakes on here. And we'll stop just short of what would appear to be runway 14. Alright, come on, baby. There we go. Okay, everything looks good. I don't see any traffic coming in, so we'll finish getting everything turned on. We'll start with our strobe lights, and we'll also want our landing lights on. Now, our transponder, we can set that to on as well, so there we go. You can see that it says our seat is safe. We need to arm our ejection seat, so we'll just pull on that little handle, and now it says seat armed. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. I'll explain all the little icons that are above. For now, I'm going to take it off the checklist screen and put it on the ADI screen. We'll leave the right side on the map. I kind of like having a map and the G1000, as it were. Alright, we're pretty much ready to move out. And we are lined up with runway 14. We're not going to do brakes down, throttles up this time. We're actually just going to roll with it and get going. Alright, so everything checks out. Everything is looking good. So we'll add some throttle and we'll go, go, go. We're going to rotate just above 100 knots. Remember, I said this is a really light aircraft, so it really doesn't take much for us to get in the air, as you're about to find out right now. Just like that, we are airborne and we're over the St. Johns River. Gotta love it. Got to love it. Now, one thing I should point out, even though I manually raise the landing gear, you really don't have to. This is an AOA product, which means all the little shortcuts and all the little time savers that they could think of, they have added to this aircraft, just like they did on their previous aircraft, the F-35A, F-35B, and even the Osprey. So with this aircraft, it will actually control when your gear goes up automatically, as well as your flaps and slats. So you really don't have to do anything in that regard to get this thing cleaned up. Now, I took the liberty of getting the gear up manually, like I had said. However, the flaps went up automatically once we got over about 200 or so knots, a little bit higher than that. So we are completely clean and we're turning around so that we can pick up our little GPS line here. I think it's already defaulted to the next waypoint, but I'm going to keep it on manual just for a little bit longer until we get over the airport that we took off from. And once we start pointing in the proper direction towards Jacksonville Craig Airport, then I will engage our autopilot. And for our flight today, we're going to be going up to Angels 20, or 20,000 feet. And I'm going to try and take us through various regimes here, so we may actually go supersonic, just to see how well this thing performs at high speed, or we may bring it down to considerably lower speeds throughout the course of our flight. Alright, so I'm using the upfront controls here. I've activated the autopilot, and I'm setting our vertical speed. I think the maximum I can go is 5,000 feet per minute. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and set that really quick here. There we go. That'll get us up to 20,000 feet in no time. And even though I do have our nav hold on, I have noticed that when this aircraft is in a bank, it likes to do kind of a shallow bank. as you may have noticed from outside, we were overflying downtown Jacksonville, and off in that direction is Jacksonville Craig Airport. As I had mentioned, this aircraft does a very shallow bank, so we're going to turn off the autopilot for a moment here, and we're going to pull a little bit harder, so that way we can actually overfly the airport. Otherwise, this thing might want to overcorrect. We don't want that. But I do believe that we've got it now, so as soon as we are in general position, like right about there, I can go ahead and turn the autopilot back on and then continue our climb to 20,000 feet. So right now the autopilot has taken over, and of course AOA has done a great job of showcasing that by colorizing the upfront controls. I do not recommend this aircraft if you are colorblind, however, since you really won't be able to see which color is which. But we do have everything where we need it to be, so we'll say goodbye to Jacksonville and say hello to the Atlantic Ocean. Look at that. That is freaking awesome. And by the way, check out our speed. You see that, right? We're already over Mach 1. Let's hear it for the venerable Hornet engine. That is awesome. Okay, let's see. Looks like everything is looking good. One thing I do notice about this aircraft here is the temperatures drop really quickly, so we're going to want to turn our de-ice on. That's one of the little icons that's above the left portion of our PFD. It'll actually tell you what the outside air temperature is. So when that thing goes blue, you might want to make sure you've got your de-ice switch turned on. Alright, and while this thing is pretty much settling itself on its course, we'll go back outside. Alright, so our first stop is going to be St. Augustine. We're going to be overflying that momentarily, and then we will have that very long stretch that contains the 2 waypoints before we have to dogleg to the right over to Cape Canaveral. So we'll try to keep the speed up here, and once we get to that long stretch, I'm going to do some shenanigans and just kind of show a little bit of aerobatics with this aircraft. I'm not going to get too crazy because, you know, I kind of have a time restriction here. Alright, looks like we are getting close to St. Augustine, so we're going to go back to the outside view as we overfly the airport. Alright, so that was St. Augustine, the oldest city in the contiguous United States, and of course its airport, which used to be called St. Augustine Airport, but is now called Northeast Florida Regional. Alright, let's go ahead and get the autopilot off, and we'll do a little bit of shenanigans. We're going to start with a quick aileron roll here, and we'll do it from the inside, then we'll switch to the outside and do another one from the outside view. So here we go. Whee! Very nimble little aircraft. Alley up, and we're over the top. We're going to bring her back down. There we go. Nice and easy. Dropping speed. We'll pick it back up. All right. Yeah, this thing is so docile, which makes sense because it's supposed to be a trainer for the next generation of U.S. Air Force pilots. So, yeah, we kind of expect it to be a little bit on the docile side. Alright, autopilot back on, and that'll be it for our shenanigans right now. Okay, so not too shabby for an aircraft with one engine. I'm so used to the Navy birds having two, but then, you know, all this new generation of aircraft seem to want to do it with one engine. I guess that's all fine and well. I mean, this thing does generate 11,000 pounds of dry thrust, 17,000 pounds once you kick in that afterburner, and, you know, since it's a very light aircraft, I imagine you could do a lot more than what I just showed you right there. When I did do my initial test of this aircraft, in order to provide beta feedback for the developers, I did actually abuse this thing pretty badly. I tried to get this thing to crash. I flew it like right outside of the envelope multiple times. She still did not want to crash. Of course, if you really do something stupid, I'm sure she will. But with that having been said, this is a very forgiving aircraft. So if you are relatively new to this particular type of aircraft and you're looking to get something like this, I would definitely recommend it. It will go easy on you. Alright, now here is a sneak peek of where we are headed. You see that big area of land over there? That's where Cape Canaveral is, sometimes known as Cape Kennedy. That's where we're going to be heading. Now, since we are at 19,000 feet now, we're probably not going to get a very good view of that area. And I don't know why my nav lights turned off, but I just turned them back on. Maybe they flipped off while we were doing our loop there. So my big plan is going to be to bring us down to roughly about 4,000 feet. And that should be just high enough, yet just low enough for us to get a really good view of the rocket launch pads and where they used to keep the space shuttle and all of that good jazz. I will say this, Orbx did model everything. So there's that. Alright, so we just passed Daytona Beach. It's a little too early for spring break, but we don't care about Daytona Beach right now. Our concern is that promontory of land right there. So, what I'm going to do is, as promised, I'm going to bring us down to about 4,000 feet above sea level, and that way we should get a much better view of the area. We'll activate our vertical speed, and we'll set it to about minus 5,000 feet per minute. And we'll pull our throttle back to just over idle so that way we can ride this bird down like a roller coaster at Disney World. In fact, let's go to the back seat for all of this. Okay, so we're in the back seat now, the instructor seat as I prefer to call it. And everything is still looking good. One thing that I have noticed with this aircraft, the HUD seems to be superimposed like right on the glass or plexiglass that kind of separates the two cockpits, which is kind of interesting. I'm not sure if that is really the case, but it certainly does look like it anyway. Alright, but we still got a very commanding view of Cape Canaveral, and I'm actually going to shallow us up here, because I think we will reach 4,000 before we actually reach the shore. And I really want to maximize the view here, because that is the whole point of this video, even more so than us getting to Orlando. Let's see how we're doing on gas. Oh, we're just sipping gas. That's another thing that I love about this aircraft. Even though it only has one fuel tank in the fuselage, there are no wing tanks for this aircraft. it still just about sips gas. Now, back here, the camera is going to be kind of useless. As you can see, everything's just kind of washed out. What you're looking at there is the Atlantic Ocean. However, it's just totally washed out. That is not an AOA Sims thing, however. That is an X-Plane thing. That is something they need to do with their little camera system to make it a little bit better. But it is what it is, so we're going to deal with it. We're really only going to need the camera when we're taxiing from the back seat. Which actually brings to mind a good point. I don't know if you are the kind of person that is into like multiplayer and so on and so forth, but I would imagine that this aircraft would be a prime candidate for multiplayer. And you'll have to forgive me here because I will need to pull up our ATIS for Orlando. Go ahead and turn off Traffic Global. Okay, so we are looking for KMCO, Kilo Mike Charlie Oscar. Aha, there it is. So we'll go ahead and get a frequency that we need. 120.525. Alright, so my next task is going to be to plug that into our radio so that we can listen to our ATIS. Okay, it is tuned in, and let's turn it on.
Orlando INTL Information Romeo. 1800 Zulu weather. Wind 170 at 10, visibility more than 10. Sky conditions 950 few, 32500 scattered, temperature 20, dew point -8. Altimeter 2998. Arriving runway 17 left, departing runway 17 left. Advise on initial contact, you have Romeo.
Okay, so information Romeo it is, and it doesn't look like our barometric pressure has deviated from what it was when we took off from Jacksonville, which is great because I forgot to change it to 29.9 when we went over 18,000 feet. So funny how life works. So how do you like them apples, folks? Welcome to Cape Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center. I should make that distinction. There are two separate areas to what we're looking at here. What we're looking at right there is the more famous Kennedy Space Center. So you can see the old, what looks to be a Saturn rocket there, and where they used to keep the space shuttle and all of that good jazz, NASA Central, as well as the little airport that the shuttle would land on when it wasn't landing in California. So there you go. And then on the opposite side is actually Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. So you've got all of those facilities there. Directly ahead, however, is what's known as the Space Coast Regional Airport, or Titusville, and it is right next to the city of Titusville. Alright, so we are past Cape Canaveral, we're past Titusville, and now we've got like a little bit of glades here. It's not truly the Everglades, but it's the same kind of terrain. And the way that Orbx has modeled it actually looks pretty cool. It does seem like a little bit greener than I remember, but we could always chalk that up to algae, so you know what, I'm not going to complain too much. Now directly ahead is our destination. That is Orlando International Airport. There's another nuclear power plant right there for Orlando, which the downtown Orlando area is right there. Now you may be wondering, where is Disney World and all of those places? Well, we're not going to get to Disney World in this video, but I promise in the next one. Alright, so I do want to throw out the disclaimer there that the FPS may drop a little bit. Instead of using a default Orlando airport scenery, which they did have a pretty decent one, I really wanted to show off the Nimbus version. And the Nimbus version unfortunately has a lot of stuff going on in it, so it will drop our FPS, and hopefully this episode won't end up looking like a slideshow. Alright, but I am going to turn off our autopilot right now, and we're going to hand fly it. There is Route 528, which means that this power station to the right there should be Southern Power Company, if I'm not too mistaken. It's a nuclear power plant that powers all of the Orlando region. There we go, we can get a better look at it there. There's a lot of nuclear power plants in Florida. We're going to pass by a number of them throughout our journey on the way to the Florida Keys. Alright, but we're going to follow Route 528 here. You can see it going straight ahead, and you can see our final destination, Orlando International Airport. Even though Nimbus did an absolutely stellar job with this airport and all the scenery objects and everything that it has, it will definitely dump our frames a little. And with the inclement weather starting to roll in, I'm just going to give you my apologies from right now. But hopefully that will not detract from this aircraft, because it really is a pretty awesome aircraft and it's handling it quite well. Performance-wise, in VR or out of VR, this one is definitely top-notch. It barely even touches your frames per second. Alright, it is time for us to enter the traffic pattern, so I'm going to turn slightly north here, and we'll put our speed brakes out as well to slow us down. And we'll go to the outside view. Alright, let's get our gear down. Ooh, what is that noise? Oh, I think I'm going a little too slow here. I'm at 142 knots, so we'll increase speed a little bit here. I know the gear extension speed is just below 200 knots, so I'm not quite sure why it was beeping at me there, but I guess we're okay. I don't think we were in danger of stalling either, so we're pretty good to go. Alright, so we are in the suburbs of Orlando, and as you can see, there is the airport there. So I'm going to turn us a bit to the west here until we get past that first runway, which is runway 17 left. They did say that that is the runway they're using for traffic, so we're going to use 17 right to land. Holy hell, FPS is dropping into the crapper here. Ooh, oh boy. Alright, well, we will be down momentarily, so it's time to turn from base leg to final. And let me just make sure everything else is looking kosher. Yeah, everything seems to be fine. Now, I actually had to turn down my settings a little bit so that this video could be done. So you may notice that in some portions of the Orbx scenery that you're looking at, you're just seeing the ortho photo of the residential areas and not the actual buildings. I had to do that. That's the only way I could get this video finished, was to actually bring my settings down to medium, because I really didn't expect for this Orlando airport to hit me that hard. But with that having been done, it does appear that we might actually be able to pull this off. So let us bring her in, and then we should be good to go as far as this episode is done. We can call it complete. Alright, right now let me concentrate and get us on glide slope. So once again, we saw the lovely traffic provided by Orbx on Route 528. And what in the hell? No, dude. Don't do it, dude. Oh my god. What is Traffic Global up to? You're seriously just gonna go right across that runway? You're not gonna hold short, are you? Well, alright then. You do your thing. I can't believe it. Okay then. Well, that was largely unexpected, but hey, welcome to Orlando. It's a pretty busy airport. We can kind of expect Traffic Global to kind of throw a monkey wrench into everything. But hey, at least they're out of our way, so now we can actually go to the outside view and finally bring this bird in. Alrighty folks, welcome to Orlando, and let me put the brakes on here. Okay, we're a little too fast to taxi. Get our brakes off. So once again, the aircraft pretty much did everything on its own. It put the speed brakes out when it needed to, it's going to pull the flaps up when it needs to, and so on and so forth. So AOA Simulations, bravo on creating the plugins that does a lot of the work automatically for you. That is really cool stuff. I love the way it's been implemented. Alright, this is our exit. So we're going to head over to the terminal, and welcome once again to Orlando, folks. This airport I like to call the Cloverleaf Airport because of the way that the terminals are laid out. There are like 4 distinct areas that are connected to the one central terminal for arrivals and departures. And of course, there's the nifty little train system that connects all the terminals to the one central hub. So pretty cool stuff. All of this is modeled with the Nimbus Simulations Orlando that we're looking at right now, which has been graciously populated by Traffic Global. And I have to say, the two work well together. Alright, so we are on the apron, and I don't know why my landing light was turned off. I noticed some of these switches seem to flip themselves on or off, just like randomly. I'm not quite sure what's up with that. Anyway, so yes, Orlando International Airport. One of my favorite airports. I've been coming to this airport since about 1986. And I have to say, it never grows old. Even though the terminal buildings and the monorail or the little train system might be a little bit older, this airport is just one of my favorites. So I can't say enough good things about Orlando Airport. Now, if you attended FlightSimExpo 2019, this airport should be very familiar to you because this is the airport we all flew into in order to attend FlightSimExpo last year, which was held at the Renaissance SeaWorld just to the west of this location. Just so you're aware, since we're on the subject, this year, 2020, FlightSimExpo is going back to Vegas, and we're going to be at the Tropicana in Las Vegas, which, by the way, has a commanding view of McCarran Airport. So, if you haven't already gotten your tickets, be sure to look for the link in the video description below for FlightSimExpo 2020. Alrighty folks, so that will do it for me, and thank you as always for watching. This has been BelGeode. I have been flying in X-Plane 11, and our chariot for tonight has been the brand spanking new AOA Simulations T-7A Red Hawk. Remember, at the time of this recording, it is in beta. This has been a preview version. I would like to thank AOA Simulations for this preview copy and the opportunity to actually showcase it for you all tonight. We've been flying around in Orbx True Earth, Florida, and we are at the Nimbus Simulations Orlando. Links to both are in the video description below. If you enjoy what you've seen, please feel free to give me a like. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will be back soon with leg number 4. Ciao!